Hi everybody. I'm here to talk today about introducing young theater students to the world of scenic design, as well as talk through 3 student activities that you can incorporate into your lesson plan. My name is Ashley Burns, and I'm the scenic painter at Theater Squared in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I received my MFA in scenic design from the University of Arkansas in 2013. All right, I've got a slideshow shared here. I'm going to get myself out of the way. We'll get started. Welcome. I want to open with my personal definition of scenic design. Scenic design is the transformation of a space into a world in which artists will perform. I love using this definition because it's a relatively simple way of saying that a scenic designer's job is to create a playground that is safe for the director and actors to explore the show. And my goals for today, first, we'll be going through what a scenic designer does in general, and then we'll go into more depth with the step-by-step process with examples of each. And at the end, we'll talk through the 3 activities I mentioned before. And the wonderful thing about the activities we'll talk about today is that they can be done in the classroom or at home. Okay. The scenic designer's job description varies a little bit from theater to theater, but in my experience, it's generally the same routine. It starts with the design pitch. Once the designer and the director have both read and processed the play, they'll meet and the designer will bring research materials, inspirational collages, inspirational images, and some very early sketches called thumbnail sketches that give an idea of the things that the designer has visualized so far. And that's how the designer and the director get on the same page. A scenic designer collaborates with other designers to end up with an end product that is cohesive and makes sense to the audiences. They create technical drawings for the technical director and make themselves available to answer questions or discuss changes. They provide detailed paint elevations and color choices to the scenic painter to make sure that the end product is finished the way they would like it to be. And lastly, a designer arrives at the theater right before tech rehearsals start, helps with some finishing touches, gives advice, and then sets through the rehearsals, giving notes to the tech team as needed. And then you open a show. So to break those things down a little bit further, we're going to go into the step-by-step process that we go through as scenic designers. Step 1, seemingly obvious, read the play, but I like to tell people that we really need to read the play 2 times at the start of the process. The first read is really truly for you to develop a personal, emotional connection with the play and to really sit with it and think about it and start your brain juices flowing and thinking about what you see while you read it. The second read is to go through taking notes, calling out every set unit and prop that you'll need. Most of the time, all of these things are in the stage directions. Occasionally, they're hiding in the dialogue and the subtext. So you've got to watch for those things. And initially, you'll miss a few, and then you'll read it a 3rd time. Step 2 is my favorite. I'm a big nerd. I really love the research part. The research part is where a designer gathers every bit of information that they possibly can about all the things of the play. The time period in which it was written, the time period in which it was set, the styles of those periods, the historical context of the play in terms of politics or the zeitgeist of the time, research the playwright, and research the genre or the style like you would in English, like the Southern Gothic writers. There's Southern Gothic playwrights, and that can really give you a guide and inform a lot of early design decisions. And it's just really fun to learn about everything. Every play is different. Step 3, that's your first director chat, probably right before the design pitch. You just like talk through when you want to meet, what you feel so far, and that's a good way to be an icebreaker before you have the design pitch in person. More about the design pitch, more specifically about what a designer will bring to that meeting. Right here, I call it research images and make an inspirational collage. Well, those are just 2 things, but under a broader umbrella of whatever you need at this meeting to express your ideas and your emotional connection with the play. So this could be basic collages or a set of very curated, beautiful mood boards. As long as it's something to represent how the designer is inspired visually, but you could also get real creative with it. Bring a song, write a poem, find some leaves, and bring them in if you think that that's part of it. It really is an endless list of things you can do. And I really truly think that it's important to not have strict parameters in this moment, because for a designer, it's the most freedom you're ever going to have. And you can really set the tone and the scale and the mood in this meeting with anything you need to do that. So that covers research images, inspirational images. And then you'll also bring in thumbnail sketches and a white model. A white model is also called a sketch model. These are basically tools for brainstorming, so they don't need to be beautiful. They don't need to be perfect in any way. I call it loose, imperfect, fast, quick and dirty, that kind of stuff, because it really is so that you can rule out ideas quickly and come up with some really neat stuff in shortening your allotment of time, if that makes any sense. You'll get honestly a lot more answers from a 5-minute sketch than you would a drawing that takes an hour. And I'll show examples of the sketch models and thumbnail sketches in a couple slides. Step 5, design meetings, revisions, and budget talks. Once you get that fun, creative brainstorming phase out of the way, it's about several weeks of meetings and constant communication with your design team, your director, and members of the production team at your theater that you're working. That might be a production manager. It's absolutely the technical director. They'll be your best friend the whole time, just to see like what's manageable for that particular theater's staff and budgets. So then once you have narrowed the design a little bit more, you're all in agreement, you're moving forward, then you get into budget talks. Budget talks are real regular, but it's actually a really nice way to streamline your set design, clean it up. There's a lot of over designing that happens, and since it can really add up to a lot of money, production managers and technical directors' job is to cut away at it. They say, I don't think you need these 10 bookshelves. Can you make it 5 or can you make it 8? And then you negotiate those things. But it can really aid the design in a way that makes it less busy, easy to focus on the acting and the words of the script. And that's truly why you're all there. You want to do what's best for the script. So I love budget talks. I know they can be a pain, but you really get a lot of stuff cut away, and it's good. So then once the final design or budget talk has happened, you've reached that number, everyone's happy, the design is finished. And step 6 is to finish the design. Update all of your paperwork, finish your drafting, send that off to the technical director so that he can start drafting or she can start drafting. Then probably a properties breakdown for the props master, or at least some guidelines or a mood board for the props master. Paint elevations and color choices for the scenic painter, etc. Oh, and then a full scale model or a rendering or a 3D model from the computer. We'll get some examples of those too. And step 7 is when you get to the theater, gauge what the status is of everything, maybe help do some finishing touches. A lot of scenic painters will hop in with paints, or a lot of scenic designers will hop in with paints and just guide and say, maybe this needs to be darker. And then you try to get it as finished as you can before that first technical rehearsal where you're gonna shine lights on it and the notes will become clear. Once the technical rehearsals have come and gone and notes are given, then it's opening night and congratulations. Okay, so I've got some examples of all of the steps. A lot of these are from grad school where we actually didn't put the plays on stage. They're called paper projects. But yeah, so I just have the paperwork from those. Here are some examples of collages. These are my inspirational / historic collages. There's a Go Dog Go, Anonymous, and Next to Normal. And they have their playwrights here. And then here are some examples of sketches. And as you can see, they're very early. They're not clean. They're just what they are, but they're trying to express mood and the use of space a little bit. I really love doing sketches on black paper with a white pen or a metallic pen. I went real crazy here with Streetcar. But yeah, and they can be sketches of what you think the set will be physically, but they can also be more abstract. This is the first stage, the design pitch. I mean, I've taken this to a meeting like that and said, this is what I want. I want help figuring out how to get there. And we eventually did it with a giant piece of China silk. But so really anything goes at the design pitch. Here are some examples of the sketch models for the design pitch. They're 5-minute models, and 3 of these are just prompts that I did in grad school based on a feeling word. This one here is isolation. And you can see that we didn't take very much time to do it, and it really helps you keep it simple. Less is more in this case. And I think it does a pretty good job of making the viewer feel that feeling. And the extra fun part about sketch models and 3D scale models are that you can light them any way you can, like little flashlights with some gel on them, and you can really create something spectacular. And when you look at it in daylight or fluorescent light, it's like, how did you get this mood from this thing? And lighting is a really good way to do that. So this was isolation. This is a school gym, and it's nostalgia. And this beach scene here with a reflective water, that's a serenity. And this is a sketch model from Streetcar, my Streetcar Desire pitch in graduate school. And actually I have that pretty much the whole pitch right here on this slide. It's one of my sketches from earlier. I had 2 collages for this one because I really, at the time, was into these spiral staircases and a little bit of steampunk. but I loved the spiral staircase collage. And just like a collage that is the feel of New Orleans at night back in the day. So it's a little bit of historical and a lot of inspiration. And this is another sketch model from that meeting where I just had a lot of fun with lighting it. And that's a poem I brought in too. All right. So here are some examples of some of the more finished products that you're gonna have in a scene design packet. These are some renderings. Renderings are a great way to establish the mood of a play. If it's dark and dingy, use watercolors and get muddy with it on watercolor paper. It's really fun. If it's a clean, sleek, modern house, maybe do markers on smooth, shiny paper. So this is an example of the range of mood you can have in a rendering. And then these are some more technical drawings. They're for the scenic painter. They just call out every color you're gonna need and every paint technique you're gonna need. And this is an example down here of a more detailed, I'm gonna try to zoom in, just a more detailed like prop informative thing where I've drafted it here in a program called SketchUp and given dimensions. A lot of scenic designers really have to design some big props because they'll come on and off stage, and that was that case there. Okay, now I want to go next. All right. Modeling is really, really fun. It takes a person with a sense of, they need to be detail oriented, they need to be pretty fast, and it does still take a really long time. So these are some examples over here of full-scale models for a show. This is a show called Prometheus Bound, and it's hard to see, but it's a dark show. And he like comes up this mountain, and the backdrop is other mountains that may or may not be real. I don't know. I printed it off the internet. And this is a children's show called Abe, and it's about Abraham Lincoln's life. And so I went a little bit cartoony with a forest. That's that backdrop there. And then Go Dog Go is self-explanatory. It's the play is the book. And here is an example over here of 3D modeling with a program called SketchUp. You could do 3D modeling in a lot of different programs. SketchUp, in graduate school, it was free, and it's still, there's still a version of it that is free, and there are versions of it that schools can have access to, and I will try to get more information and include it in a little PDF that I'll include with the video. But this is an example of a rendering or 3D model that I did in grad school when SketchUp was sort of new, and it's a little bit clunky, but it got the idea across, and I did a rendering from this picture of the model. 3D models on the computer are really wonderful because you can sit down with your director with your mouse and you explore that space in the computer, and you can do a lot of things like import people, import a dining set. You can do anything. It's a dollhouse on the internet, and it's amazing. And it can really be much faster than the full-scale model. So I kind of prefer it, and I am constantly working to get better at the skill. But yeah, but also SketchUp got better over the years, and depending on which version you get, you have different bells and whistles. And this is a 3D model, Go Dog Go. And this is a model of Every Brilliant Thing. And it's important to note that in these models, you need to establish where the audience sits. That's something that I didn't used to think was very important, but it really is, especially in these computer models where you can sit yourself in a chair in the audience and sort of see what they're gonna see. Yeah. And lastly, we have an example of some drafting that you'll need to hand off to your technical director and also your stage management team. They need to know how to tape out the stage for their rehearsals. Excuse me. And your ground plan will also need to include the furniture required in every scene. So a lot of times it's really nice to do a scenic breakdown where you give them a new ground plan for every scene that they're gonna do, so they know how to track the furniture. And that's really easy to do. You import them into a Word document and then type what you're doing. It's all, it's fun to do too. It's just really detail oriented and kind of at the end of your process. So it's like, oh, but once it's done, you're free. You get to just answer questions and help out. So that's an example of a ground plan, and that's an example of a section, which is a side view of the set. Awesome. Well, now that we've talked through the steps of scenic design in more detail, we can talk about 3 activities that I think are really great for theater students. And they can be done, like I said, in the classroom or at home, and they can be done in pairs and groups or solo. So really whatever you guys need as instructors, you can fine tune it to that and fine tune it to the wants of your students and what's best for them. All of these projects can be done whether you're a little one or an older teenager. You just sort of adapt the prompt. I think all of these activities you can either do with a play, which, you know, you'll be in a theater class, so you'll have plays around, but it's also kind of nice to do these with like a storybook that everyone knows. So Go Dog Go, which is a play, but it's a good simple story with a kind of disjointed plot line, but that's as useful as reading Streetcar Named Desire and going from there. So I'll break down the 3 activities more. The first activity is honestly just the first part of the design, from reading the play to the design pitch. You can pick and choose if you want to do more sketches or more collages. It's really up to you guys. Students love doing collages and they will want to do them forever. So if you have a big stack of magazines and a stash of wallpaper samples, they can go to town. And honestly, I love a collage. It can be really, really descriptive of your emotional connection to something. So that's that. And you can pair people up in little design teams, even if one person wanted to do the lighting, and like really all you need is some lighting designer gel and little flashlights, and you just tape the gel on and clip them to the sides of the sketch model if you start making sketch models. One thing I really love about doing sketch models with students, a thing that is useful is just a shoebox. You don't need to build the foam core fancy model that people have. You can just make a diorama like we used to do. And it is really nice for young students especially to get a sense of playing with scale. And if, I don't know, that's hard to articulate, but you can just have one big tree or lots of little trees. And if they're larger than life, because maybe you're in an imaginary world, or if they're very realistic because you're in a realistic play, it's just, the possibilities are endless. So that's the first activity, is creating a design pitch, however they want to do it. It's really free. And if you need to create parameters for it because they'll take a long time to do all of those things, absolutely do so. You can limit it to the sketches. You can limit it to a collage or a sketch model. The second activity is for the really ambitious students that want to get super into the details and the finished product, and students that really enjoy drafting technical drawings. So that prompt is a really sped up version of the design pitch, and then let them really focus and spend time on the finished artwork and create a final design packet for a tech team at a theater. And the third activity, which I really, really love, is to define a space. So you're doing the design pitch or the final design packet, but you are not doing it for a traditional shaped theater. The prompt could be something like, pick a spot in your backyard. You're going to do a play in that spot and draw out or map out the area in which you'll do it, and it can get really exciting really fast. But then I think the end goal of that activity is a shoebox model. And it doesn't have to be a part of your backyard. It doesn't have to be a part of nature. It can also be something like an abandoned amusement park or a strip mall. So that's a really fun exercise in being innovative and truly using your imagination. I'll write all of those up in a PDF to have included in the video file, and also this slideshow will also be in there. Well, that concludes my presentation, and I really hope that I've given you guys some tools and tricks to develop lesson plans and really spark some creativity and have some fun with the plays you're reading in your classes this year. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.